the raspberry worm. Phew! Cried Lisa. Cried Aina. What now? Cried the big sister. A worm! Cried Lisa. On the raspberry! Cried Aina. Kill it! Cried Otto. What's the fuss over a poor little worm? Said the sister scornfully. Yes, when we had cleaned the raspberry so carefully, said Lisa. It crept out from that very large one, put in Aina. And supposing we had eaten one of the raspberries, said Lisa. Then we would have eaten the worm too, said Aina. Well, what harm? Said Otto. Eat a worm, cried Lisa. And kill him with one bite, murmured Aina. Just think of it, said Otto, laughing. Now it's crawling on the table, cried Aina again. Blow it away, said the big sister. Tramp on it, replied Otto. But Lisa took a raspberry leaf, swept the worm carefully on the leaf, and carried it to the yard. Then Aina noticed that a sparrow sitting on the fence was getting ready to pounce on the poor little worm, so she took up the leaf and carried it out into the wood and hid it under a raspberry bush where the greedy sparrow could not find it. Yes, and what more is there to tell about the raspberry worm? Who would give 3 straws of such a miserable little thing? Yes, but who would not like to live in a pretty home as it lives in such fresh, fragrant, dark red cottage, far away from the quiet wood, among flowers and green leaves? Now it was just dinner time, so they all had dinner of raspberries and cream. Be careful with the sugar, Otto, said the big sister, but Otto's plate was like a snowdrift in winter, with just a little red under the snow. Soon after dinner, the big sister said, Now I've eaten up all the raspberries, and we have none left to make preserves for the winter. It would be fine if we got 2 full baskets of berries. Then we could clean them all this evening, and tomorrow we could cook them in the big preserving pan. And then we could have raspberry jam to eat on your bread. Come, let us go to the wood and pick, said Lisa. Yes, let us, said Aina. Take your yellow basket, and I'll take the green one. Don't get lost, and come back safely in the evening, said the big sister. Greetings to the raspberry worm, said Otto mockingly. Next time I meet him, I shall do him the honor of eating him up. So Aina and Lisa went off to the wood. How beautiful! It was certainly tiresome sometimes climbing over fallen trees and getting caught in the branches, and waging war with the juniper bushes and the midges, but what did that matter? The girls climbed well in their short dresses, and soon they were deep in the wood. There were plenty of bilberries and elderberries, but no raspberries. They wandered on, and at last they came to, no, it could not be true. They came to a large raspberry wood. The wood had been on fire once, and now raspberry bushes had grown up, and there were raspberry bushes and raspberry bushes as far as the eye could see. Every bush was weighed to the ground with the largest, dark red, ripe raspberries. Such a wealth of berries as 2 little berry pickers had never found before. Lisa picked, Aina picked, Lisa ate, Aina ate, and in a little while their baskets were full. Now we shall go home, said Aina. No, let us gather some more, said Lisa. So they put their baskets down on the ground and began to fill their pinafores, and it was not long before the pinafores were full too. Now we shall go home, said Lisa. Yes, we shall go home, said Aina. Both girls took a basket in one hand and held up their apron in the other, and then turned to go home. But that was easier said than done. They had never been so far in the great wood before, and they could not find any path or road, and soon the girls noticed that they had lost their way. The worst of it was the shadows of the trees were becoming so long in the evening sunlight. The birds were beginning to fly home, and the day was closing in. At last the sun went down between the pine tops, and it was cool, dusky in the great wood. The girls became anxious, but went steadily on, expecting that the wood would end soon, and that they would see the smoke from the chimneys of their house. After they had wandered for a long time, it began to grow dark. At last they reached a great plain overgrown with bushes, and when they looked about them, they saw, as much as they could, the darkness, but they were in the same beautiful raspberry bushes from which they had picked their baskets and full their aprons. Then they were so tired that they sat down on a stone and began to cry. I'm so hungry, said Lisa. Yes, said Aina. If only we had 2 good meat sandwiches just now. And she said that she felt something in her hand. And when she looked down, she saw a large sandwich of bread and chicken. And at the same time, Lisa said, How queer, I have a sandwich in my hand. And I too, said Aina. Will you dare to eat it? Of course I will, said Lisa. If only we had a good glass of milk just now. And as she said that, she felt a large glass of milk between her fingers. And at the same time, Aina cried out, Lisa, Lisa, I have a glass of milk in my hand. Isn't this queer? The girls, however, were very hungry, so they ate and drank with a good appetite. When they had finished, Anna yawned and stretched out her arms and said, Oh, if only we had a nice soft bed to sleep on now. Scarcely had she spoken before she felt a nice soft bed by her side, and there beside Lisa was one too. These seemed to the girls more and more wonderful, but tired and sleepy as they were, they thought no more about it and crept into the little beds, drew coverlets over their heads, and were soon asleep. When they woke, the sun was high in the heavens, the wood was beautiful in the summer morning, and the birds were flying about in the branches and the treetops. At first the girls were filled with wonder when they saw that they had slept in the wood among the raspberry bushes. They looked at each other, and they looked at their beds, which were the finest flax covered over the leaves and moss. At last Lucy said, Are you awake, Aina? Yes, said Aina. But I'm still dreaming, said Lisa. No, said Aina. But there's certainly some good fairy living among the raspberry bushes. If only we had a hot cup of coffee now, and a nice piece of white bread to dip into it. Scarcely had she finished speaking when she saw beside her a little silver tray with a gilt coffee pot, 2 cups of rare porcelain, and a sugar basin of fine crystal, silver sugar tongs, and some fresh white bread. The girls poured out the coffee and put in their cream and sugar and tasted it. Never in their lives had they tasted such beautiful coffee. Now I should like to know very much who's given us all this, said Lisa. I have, my little girls, said a voice just then from the bushes. The children looked around wonderingly and saw a kind-looking little old man in a white coat and red hat, limping out from among the bushes, though he was lame in the foot. Neither Lisa nor Anna could utter a word. They were so filled with surprise. Don't be afraid, little girls, he said, smiling kindly at them, and he could not laugh properly because his mouth was crooked. Welcome to my kingdom. You have slept well and eaten well and drunk well? He asked. Yes, indeed we have, said both girls. But tell us. And they wanted to ask who the old man was, but were afraid to. I will tell you who I am, said the old man. I am the Raspberry King, who reigns over this kingdom of raspberry bushes, and I have lived here for more than 1,000 years. But the Great Spirit who rules over the woods and sea and the sky did not want me to become proud of my royal power and my long life. Therefore he decreed that one day in every 100 years I should change into a little raspberry worm and live in that weak and helpless form from sunrise till sunset. During that time my life is dependent on the little worm's life, so that a bird can eat me, a child can pick me up with the berries and trample underfoot my 1,000 years of life. Now yesterday was just my transformation day, and I was taken with a raspberry and would have been trampled to death if you had not saved my life. Till sunset I lay helpless in the grass, and when I was swept away on from your table, I twisted one of my feet, and my mouth came crooked with terror. But when evening came, I could take my own form again. I looked for you to thank you and reward you. Then I found both of you here in my kingdom, and tried to meet both of you as well as without frightening you. Now I will send the bird from my wood to show you the way home. Goodbye, little children, and thank you for your kind hearts. The Raspberry King can show he is not ungrateful. The children shook hands with the old man and thanked him, feeling very glad that they had saved the little raspberry worm. They were just going when the old man turned around and smiled mischievously with his crooked mouth, and said, Greetings to Otto from me, and tell him when I meet him again, I shall do him the honor of eating him up. Oh, please don't do that, cried both girls, very frightened. Well, for your sake I will forgive him, said the old man. I am not revengeful. Greetings to Otto, and tell him that he may expect a gift from me, too. Goodbye. The two girls, light of hearts, now took their berries and ran off through the woods after the bird. And soon it began to get lighter in the wood, and they wondered how they could have lost their way yesterday. It seemed so easy and so plain now. One can imagine what joy there was when the two reached home. Everyone had been looking for them, and the big sister had not been able to sleep, for she thought the wolves had eaten them up. Otto met them. He had a basket in his hand and said, "Look, here's something that an old man just left for you." When the girls looked into the basket, they saw a pair of the most beautiful bracelets of precious stones, dark red and made in the shape of a ripe raspberry with an inscription, "To Lisa Aina." Beside them, and there was a diamond breastpin in the shape of a raspberry worm, on which was inscribed, "Otto, never destroy the helpless." Otto felt rather ashamed. He quite understood what it meant, but he thought that the old man's revenge was a noble one. The Raspberry King had also remembered the big sister, for when she sat in the table for dinner, she found 11 big baskets of the most beautiful raspberries, and no one knew how they had come there, but everyone guessed. And there was so much jam making, it had never been before. And if you'd like to go and help in, they might perhaps get a little, for they will surely be making jam up to this very day.